You knew you were close before you saw the sign. You smelled the biscuits, that warm, buttery garlic and cheese smell that hit you in the parking lot and followed you through the front door and wrapped itself around you like a hug from someone who was genuinely happy to see you. Cheddar Bay Biscuits, you didn't even have to order them. They just appeared, a basket of golden, crumbly, impossibly good bread that showed up before you sat down and kept coming until you left. That was Red Lobster, and right now it is disappearing. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. You remember the first time, maybe you were 10, maybe you were 12. Your parents took you somewhere that wasn't the usual place, not the diner, not the pizza joint, not the drive-thru with the paper bag and the fries that were cold by the time you got home. This was different. There was a hostess in a black apron who smiled and said, "How many tonight?" There was a waiting area with wooden benches and nautical paintings on the wall, and a tank full of live lobsters by the front door. You pressed your face against the glass and watched them crawl over each other with their rubber-banded claws, and you thought two things at the same time: that they were the most fascinating creatures you had ever seen, and that somewhere in the kitchen, one of their relatives was already on a plate with melted butter next to it. Your mother told you not to tap the glass. You tapped the glass. Your little brother tapped it harder. The lobsters didn't care. They gave you a buzzer. A little black rectangle that vibrated and flashed red when your table was ready. You held it in both hands like a grenade with the pin pulled, staring at it, waiting for the moment. 5 minutes felt like 30. You watched other families get called. You watched the hostess lead them through the double doors into the dining room, and you caught a glimpse of what was on the other side. Dark wood, soft light, the smell of butter and garlic and something being broiled. And you wanted to be in there so badly that your chest hurt. And when it finally buzzed, when it lit up and vibrated in your palms and your father stood up and said, "Let's go," you walked through those doors like you were entering a world that had been built just for tonight. Dark wood paneling, fishing nets hanging from the ceiling, a ship's wheel mounted on the wall, soft light, the clink of forks on plates, and the sound of people laughing the way people laugh when they're eating something good and not worrying about what it costs. Because tonight, nobody was worrying about what it cost. That was what Red Lobster was. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was the place you went when something mattered. Your birthday, your parents' anniversary, the night your sister graduated, the Friday after your dad got the promotion he'd been waiting for, the Sunday after church when your grandmother was visiting and your mother wanted to go somewhere nice but not too nice because grandma would complain about the prices either way. It was the place where your family sat down together and ordered things they wouldn't normally order: shrimp and lobster and crab legs and a platter called the Admiral's Feast that arrived on a plate so big it barely fit on the table and so full that your father whistled through his teeth when the waiter set it down. Your mother ordered the lobster tail and your father pretended to complain about the price and then ate half of it off her plate when she wasn't looking. Your brother got the popcorn shrimp because he was 11 and didn't trust anything that still looked like it came from the ocean. You got the snow crab legs because someone told you they were good and because cracking them open with the metal tool they gave you made you feel like you were doing surgery on an alien. The butter dish was bottomless. The napkins were inadequate. The front of your shirt looked like a crime scene by the time you were done. And nobody cared because it was that kind of night. And before any of it arrived, before the appetizers, before the drinks, before the waiter even finished writing down the order, the biscuits came. The basket was bottomless. You ate 4, your father ate 6, your grandmother ate 2 and said they were too rich and then ate a third when she thought nobody was watching. Nobody counted. Nobody cared. The biscuits were free and the night was special, and for an hour and a half you were a family that ate at Red Lobster, and that meant something. It meant you were doing okay. It meant there was enough. It meant that the world for one evening was exactly the way it was supposed to be. For millions of American families, that was the experience. Not fine dining, not fast food, something in between, something that felt like a celebration without requiring a reservation or a jacket or a second mortgage. Red Lobster made seafood accessible to people who lived 600 miles from the nearest coast. That was the whole idea. A man named Bill Darden figured that out in 1968 when he opened the first Red Lobster in Lakeland, Florida, an inland city, deliberately because he wanted to prove that people in the middle of the country wanted good seafood just as much as people on the beach. He was right. Within 2 years, General Mills bought his little restaurant and turned it into a national chain. Within 20 years, there were 400 locations. Within 40 years, there were more than 1,400 Red Lobsters, 64 million customers a year. Cheddar Bay Biscuits served at a rate so staggering that the company once estimated it went through more than 1,000 pounds of cheese per day just for the bread. Lobster Fest became a Valentine's Day tradition. Endless shrimp became a summer ritual, and the popcorn shrimp, introduced in 1974, the same year your mother probably first took you, became one of the most recognizable menu items in the history of American dining. And then someone decided to sell the buildings. This is the part of the story that most people don't know. This is the part that doesn't make the news the way a shrimp promotion does. This is the quiet, technical, invisible thing that happens in a conference room on a Tuesday afternoon while 64 million customers are eating biscuits and not thinking about corporate finance. But this is the thing that killed Red Lobster, not the shrimp. This. In 2014, Darden Restaurants, the company that Bill Darden built, the company that bore his name, the company that had nurtured Red Lobster for almost half a century, sold Red Lobster to a private equity firm called Golden Gate Capital. The price was $2.1 billion. That sounds like a lot of money. It is. But here is what Golden Gate Capital did with it that most people don't know and that everyone should. On the same day they bought Red Lobster, they sold the real estate, the actual buildings, the land beneath them, the parking lots, the walls, the kitchens, the dining rooms where your family celebrated birthdays under more than 500 Red Lobster restaurants. They sold them to a real estate investment company called American Realty Capital Properties for $1.5 billion. And then Red Lobster, the company that had owned those buildings for decades, the company that had paid off the mortgages and maintained the roofs and replaced the carpets, had to pay rent on them. Rent on its own restaurants. Rent that started high and went up 2% every single year, automatically, contractually, without negotiation, without mercy. By 2023, Red Lobster was paying $200 million a year in rent. $200 million. That is 10% of everything the company earned. 10 cents of every dollar that came through the register, every biscuit, every lobster tail, every Admiral's Feast went to pay for buildings that Red Lobster used to own. Buildings that someone else now owned because a private equity firm had stripped them out and sold them off to finance the purchase. It is a financial maneuver that has a name. It is called a sale-leaseback. And it has killed more American businesses than any recession or pandemic or change in consumer taste ever could. Sears died from it. Mervyn's died from it. Shopko died from it. And Red Lobster is dying from it right now. But the buildings were only the first wound. The second came from Thailand. In 2016, a company called Thai Union Group, one of the largest seafood suppliers in the world based in Bangkok, bought a 25% stake in Red Lobster, By 2020, they own the whole thing. And here is where the story turns from a business failure into something that feels a lot more like a betrayal. Thai Union was not just Red Lobster's owner. It was also Red Lobster's biggest supplier. It sold Red Lobster its shrimp, which means that every decision Thai Union made about what Red Lobster served and how much it charged was also a decision about how much shrimp Thai Union could sell to itself through its own restaurant at whatever price it chose. In 2023, a Thai Union executive who was serving as Red Lobster's CEO did something that the rest of the management team begged him not to do. He took the Endless Shrimp promotion, a $20 all-you-can-eat deal that had run successfully as a limited-time event for almost 20 years, and made it permanent. Not a summer promotion, not a special event, every day. $20, all the shrimp you can eat, forever. The management team pushed back. They said it would lose money. They said customers would sit for hours eating plate after plate, and the kitchen would run out, and the wait times would explode, and the math would never work. They were right about all of it. Red Lobster lost $11 million in a single quarter from the promotion. Some restaurants ran out of shrimp entirely, going days or weeks without being able to serve the thing that was now permanently on the menu. Sales dropped $76 million in a single fiscal year, but Thai Union did not lose. Thai Union sold more shrimp. The company that owned Red Lobster had used Red Lobster as a dumping ground for its own product, and when the restaurant could not absorb the cost, Thai Union walked away. In January 2024, Thai Union announced it was divesting its stake. It took a $530 million loss, and it left Red Lobster gutted by rent it could not afford and a shrimp promotion it never wanted to die. In May of 2024, Red Lobster closed 99 restaurants in a single weekend. 99. Not over months, not with warning. Weekend. Workers showed up on Monday morning and found the doors locked, chairs stacked on tables visible through the windows, the neon sign dark, no warning, no severance, no meeting where someone sat them down and explained what had happened. Just a locked door and a parking lot that had been full on Friday night. Families eating biscuits, kids tapping the lobster tank, a waiter bringing out an Admiral's feast with a birthday candle stuck in it, and by Monday was empty, quiet, a paper sign taped to the glass. 36,000 employees worked at Red Lobster when the bankruptcy was filed. 36,000 people who came to work every day and brought baskets of biscuits to families and cracked crab legs and sang happy birthday to strangers and mopped floors at midnight. Some of them had been there for 20 years. Some of them had started as dishwashers in high school and worked their way up to manager. Some of them had met their husbands or wives there, and some of them drove to work on a Monday morning and found out their career was over because a company in Bangkok had wanted to sell more shrimp. The company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was bought out of bankruptcy for $370 million, less than a fifth of what Golden Gate had paid 10 years earlier. Today, 544 locations remain, down from 1,400, and the closures are still happening. Every month, another handful goes dark, another parking lot empties, another sign goes off. A lawsuit filed in May of this year, 2026, accuses Thai Union of treating Red Lobster as nothing more than a distribution arm for its own shrimp. The lawsuit uses a phrase that will stay with you. They tried to squeeze every drop of value from Red Lobster. Every drop. From a restaurant that served 64 million people a year, from a restaurant that a 19-year-old kid from Georgia built because he believed that everyone deserved to eat seafood, no matter how far they lived from the water. They squeezed every drop. The next time you drive past a Red Lobster, if there is still one where you live, slow down. Look at the parking lot. Look at the sign. Think about the last time you were inside. Think about the biscuits. Think about the buzzer. Think about the aquarium with the lobsters and the rubber bands on their claws. Think about the night your family went there to celebrate something that mattered, and how the waiter brought the basket and your father ate 6 biscuits and nobody said a word about it because the night was good and the food was warm, and the world, for 1 hour, was exactly the way it was supposed to be. That world is closing, one location at a time, not because the food got worse, not because people stopped coming, not because Americans decided they didn't like seafood anymore or that Cheddar Bay Biscuits weren't worth the drive, because someone in a private equity office in San Francisco decided that the buildings were worth more than the restaurant inside them, and because someone in a boardroom in Bangkok decided that selling shrimp to yourself through your own restaurant was a perfectly acceptable way to do business even if the restaurant couldn't survive it. A restaurant that was built for families was turned into a spreadsheet for investors and a supply chain for a company 6,000 miles away, and the people who lost, the families who went there on birthdays, the waiters who worked there for 20 years, the cooks who knew the Cheddar Bay Biscuit recipe by heart, the little kid who pressed his face against the lobster tank, those people were never in the room when the decisions were made. They were never asked, they were never considered, they were just customers, and customers, in the language of private equity, are a line item. Bill Darden opened a luncheonette when he was 19 years old. He called it the Green Frog, service with a hop. He believed that everyone should be able to sit down and eat a good meal at a fair price. He built Red Lobster on that belief, and for 40 years it worked. 64 million people a year, 1,400 restaurants, Cheddar Bay Biscuits served by the billion. The biscuits are still warm, but the buildings belong to someone else now, and the shrimp, the endless shrimp, turned out to have an end after all.